Daughter invited cheating ex. Wants me to pay. My daughter, 27 female, invited my former wife who was unfaithful to me to her wedding and expects me to pay for everything. Am I wrong for refusing? I got a call from my daughter, Ivy, last week. She was super excited and told me she's engaged to her boyfriend Kobe of 3 years. I was genuinely happy for her. She's my only child, and despite our sometimes rocky relationship, I've always wanted to see her settled and happy. She mentioned wanting a dream wedding and that she was counting on me to foot the bill. I agreed without much hesitation. I've done well financially, and I've been mentally preparing for this expense since she started dating Kobe seriously. She thanked me and said she'd send me a preliminary budget over the weekend. When I opened her email, I almost choked on my coffee. $85,000 for a wedding. I know prices have gone up since I got married, but this seemed excessive. Still, I could afford it, and I figured this was one of those times where parents just accept things for their kids' happiness. I texted her that we should meet for dinner to discuss the details, and we set a date for the following week. The dinner with Ivy and Kobe started off pleasant enough. We talked about their engagement story, venue ideas, and their timeline. Then casually, while discussing the guest list, Ivy dropped a bomb. She mentioned that she was really happy both her parents would be there for her special day. It took me a moment to process what she meant. Both parents, including my former wife, a woman who had a 2-year relationship with our neighbor while we were married. For context, I discovered this situation 15 years ago when I came home early from a business trip and found them together in our bed. Not just a one-time mistake, but a lengthy relationship with a man she later married. The divorce was ugly, and the betrayal nearly broke me. I've had minimal contact with her since then, only when absolutely necessary regarding Ivy. I questioned Ivy about inviting her mother without discussing it with me first. Her response was dismissive. She said it was her wedding, not mine, and that her mom had as much right to be there as I did. I didn't want to cause a scene in the restaurant, so I changed the subject. But this revelation sat like a rock in my stomach for the rest of the meal. A couple days later, I called Ivy to discuss my concerns more thoroughly. That's when she revealed that her mother wouldn't just be attending, she'd have a special role in the ceremony. I explained that while I understood her wanting her mother present, I was uncomfortable funding an event where my former wife, who betrayed me so thoroughly, would be honored. Ivy's response was to tell me I needed to get over it already since it had been 15 years and that I was being petty. I was stunned by her dismissive attitude. I told her that I needed time to think and ended the call. Before we continue with this unbelievable situation, if you're as shocked as I am, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. And tell me in the comments, is the daughter being unreasonable or should he just pay and move on? Let's see what happens next. A few days later, Ivy sent me an update on the wedding planning, including seating arrangements. Not only was my former wife seated at the family table with me, but her current husband, former relationship partner, was also invited. I called Ivy to ask if this was some kind of joke. She seemed confused by my reaction, saying that they were both important to her. When I pointed out that she was asking me to sit at a table with the woman who was unfaithful to me and the man she was unfaithful with while paying $85,000 for the privilege, she accused me of making everything about myself again and said these arrangements were non-negotiable. After the call, I took a day to gather my thoughts. Then I sent her a text explaining that I couldn't financially support a wedding that showed such disregard for my feelings. I offered a compromise. I would still contribute, but not if her mother had a special role or if her mother's husband attended. Her response was a series of angry voice messages calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to control her wedding. According to her, I was holding money over her head to get my way. 2 days later, Ivy showed up at my house with Kobe and his mother in tow. It felt like an intervention. It took turns explaining why I should just pay for the wedding without conditions. Ivy revealed that her mother would be walking her down the aisle alongside me. Kobe's mother suggested that this would be a beautiful symbol of co-parenting. I pointed out that Ivy is 27 and we haven't co-parented since she was in college. Then came another revelation. Ivy had been in regular contact with her mother for years behind my back. While I never forbade this relationship, she had deliberately kept it from me, knowing how I felt about her mother's betrayal. The next morning, I sent Ivy a text withdrawing all financial support from the wedding. I explained that I felt manipulated and disrespected, not just by the inclusion of my former wife and her relationship partner, but by the secretive way this had all been handled. I offered a smaller contribution of $10,000 if they wanted to have a modest ceremony without all the drama. What followed was a week of difficulties. Ivy went on social media rampage, painting me as the villain who was ruining her wedding because of an ancient grudge. Extended family and friends I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions on my parents' parenting and character. Then she called me crying, saying the wedding venue would cancel if the deposit wasn't paid by the end of the week. She said I was ruining the happiest day of her life. The next twist came when I received a text from my former wife, the first direct communication we'd had in years. She called me immature for punishing their daughter for her past mistakes. I blocked her number without responding. A few days later, I got an unexpected call from Kobe, Ivy's fiancé. Surprisingly, he seemed understanding of my position. He admitted he was never comfortable with all the special arrangements for Ivy's mom and her husband, and that it wasn't his idea. Kobe revealed that Ivy and her mother had planned elaborate involvement, including a mother-daughter dance and a speech about forgiveness. He asked if I would reconsider some financial support for a scaled-down wedding. I told him I appreciated his call, but Ivy's approach had shown me a side of her I didn't know existed. She'd made it clear that my feelings didn't matter to her. Kobe said he understood and mentioned he'd tried to talk to Ivy about this. She wouldn't budge. After that call, I decided to post online asking if I'm wrong for withdrawing the wedding funding. So here we are. Some additional context. I've always been there for Ivy. I paid for her college education in full. I helped with the down payment on her first car. I've never missed a birthday or important event. When she graduated, I threw her a huge party. I'm not some absent dad who suddenly showed up wanting to control her wedding. My former wife, on the other hand, was less involved after the divorce. She moved in with her relationship partner almost immediately and started a new family. Ivy spent most holidays and summers with me because her mother was too busy. Yet somehow I'm the bad guy for not wanting to fund a celebration where I'm expected to smile while my former wife plays Mother of the Year. Am I being unreasonable? Should I just accept it and pay? Ivy says I'm ruining her chance at a dream wedding. From my perspective, she's the one who made that impossible by insisting on arrangements that she knew would hurt me. Edit. Some commenters have asked why Ivy would do this. I've been asking myself the same question. My best guess is that her mother has been in her ear painting a different version of our divorce. I always tried to shield Ivy from the ugly details when she was younger. Maybe that was a mistake. To clarify, I never told Ivy she couldn't invite her mother. I just said I wouldn't pay for a wedding where her mother had a special role and her relationship partner is present. She could have accepted my compromise, but she refused. For those suggesting I should just attend as a guest and not pay, I offered that. Ivy's response was that without me paying, there would be no wedding. She's not interested in scaling down or paying for it herself. It's the full dream wedding at my expense or nothing, apparently. Several people have asked about Ivy's relationship with her mother over the years. They've had a complicated relationship. When Ivy was younger, her mother was fairly absent, prioritizing her new family. In recent years, they've apparently reconnected, which I don't oppose. What bothers me is that this reconnection seems to have included rewriting history and planning this wedding situation behind my back. To the people saying, it's just one day, accept it. It's not just about the day. It's about the months of deception leading up to it, the dismissal of my feelings, and the manipulation. If Ivy had approached it differently with honesty and respect, we might have found a compromise. Edit 2. Kobe just called again. He admitted that Ivy and her mother have been planning this for months. Apparently, my former wife suggested that making me pay for a wedding where she's prominently featured would be poetic justice for the divorce. Kobe is now having second thoughts about the whole relationship. I don't know whether to feel vindicated or sad. A lot of comments are suggesting that Ivy might not know the full story of the divorce. She does. When she turned 18, I sat her down and explained exactly what happened, including finding her mother with the neighbor in our bed. I didn't vilify her mother, but I didn't sugarcoat the betrayal either. To address the "but she's your daughter" comments, yes, she is, and I love her, but love doesn't mean being a doormat. I would never have asked my father to celebrate my mother's relationship partner, let alone pay for the privilege. Edit 3. Just got a text from Ivy saying she's going ahead with the wedding plans and will find the money somewhere. I wished her luck, but reiterated that my position hasn't changed. Now let's jump to the first update. You won't believe what happens next with the wedding plans. Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support on my original post. I wasn't expecting such a strong reaction. A lot has happened in the last few weeks, so I figured I should update you all. The day after my post went viral, I decided to show Ivy the comments. That backfired spectacularly. She dismissed the entire online community as just a bunch of bitter men and accused me of seeking validation from internet strangers instead of supporting her. A few days later, Kobe reached out again. He informed me that the wedding had been postponed indefinitely. Apparently, this whole situation had put a significant strain on their relationship. He admitted that Ivy's mother had been stirring the pot behind the scenes, encouraging Ivy to cut me off completely if I wouldn't fund the wedding on their terms. 2 days after that, I received a group text from Ivy's future in-laws. They apologized for their involvement in the intervention at my house. They revealed that Ivy had completely misrepresented the situation to them, claiming I was refusing to contribute anything to the wedding simply because her mother would be attending. They expressed disappointment in Ivy's behavior and manipulation once they learned the full story from Kobe. My brother called next to inform me that Ivy was now telling family members that I had disowned her over the wedding dispute. She and my former wife had apparently organized a family gathering at my former wife's house to support Ivy through this difficult time. I decided to take action before this narrative spread further. I sent a factual timeline of events to key family members, including screenshots of my compromise offers and Ivy's rejections. This helped counter the false narrative she was pushing. Despite everything, I received a wedding invitation in the mail a few days later. It included a handwritten note: "We're moving forward with a smaller wedding. Your presence is requested, but your wallet isn't needed anymore." The passive-aggressive tone made my decision easy. I wouldn't be attending. 2 days after receiving the invitation, Kobe called again. He sounded stressed and said his relationship with Ivy had deteriorated rapidly. He revealed that their engagement was now on hold, not just the wedding. He expressed serious concerns about Ivy's character and manipulation that had been revealed through this whole process. "I love her," he said, "but this situation has shown me sides of her I never knew existed. The way she's willing to manipulate people, twist the truth, and use emotional blackmail. It's making me reconsider everything." Kobe also shared something that confirmed my suspicions. Ivy had admitted to him during an argument that this whole wedding plan was partly orchestrated by my former wife. Apparently, she saw it as an opportunity to make things right between our families, but also as a chance to be celebrated and honored at an event I was paying for. My former wife had been feeding Ivy's sense of entitlement and encouraging her to stand firm against my unreasonable demands. I asked Kobe what his plans were moving forward. He said he needed time to think about whether he could move forward with someone who had shown such a lack of empathy and honesty. He thanked me for handling the situation with dignity and not trying to turn him against Ivy, which apparently made an impression on him compared to how Ivy and her mother have been actively trying to vilify me. As it stands now, there is no wedding on the horizon. Ivy's fundraising campaign has raised less than $2,000 of her $85,000 goal, mostly from her mother's friends. Kobe is reconsidering the relationship entirely. My extended family, initially split on the issue, has largely come around to understanding my position after seeing Ivy's behavior and hearing the full story. Ivy hasn't contacted me directly since her passive-aggressive invitation. My former wife tried calling from different numbers after I blocked her, but I've blocked those too. I've heard through family that Ivy has been telling people the wedding is postponed rather than canceled, and that she's still hoping I'll come to my senses. Edit. For those wondering about Kobe, yes, I feel bad for him. He seems like a decent guy caught in a terrible situation. I told him I don't hold any ill feelings toward him, regardless of what he decides to do about his relationship with Ivy. Some have asked if I think Ivy will try to reconcile once the money for her wedding truly runs out. Maybe, but if she does, it will be on different terms than before. I can forgive a lot, but I can't forget what this situation has revealed about her character. Update 2. It's been almost 2 months since my last update, and I wasn't planning to post again, but so much has happened that I felt I owed you all a final conclusion to the saga. First, the biggest news. Kobe and Ivy have officially ended their engagement. Kobe called me about 3 weeks ago and let me know. He said their relationship had been deteriorating ever since the wedding drama started, and they finally decided to call it quits after a particularly heated argument where Ivy accused him of taking my side instead of supporting her unconditionally. Kobe sounded relieved, which says everything about how toxic things had become. 2 weeks after the breakup, I received a lengthy email from Ivy. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was the closest thing to self-reflection I've seen from her throughout this ordeal. She acknowledged that she had perhaps been inconsiderate of my feelings regarding the wedding arrangements. She claimed she'd been caught between her mother and me, with both of us pulling her in different directions. She said she felt pressured by her mother to include her prominently in the wedding, while simultaneously feeling that I was using financial leverage to control the situation. I took a few days to consider my response. I ultimately replied that while I understood she felt caught in the middle, she was the one who made the decisions that showed a fundamental disrespect for my feelings. I reminded her that I had never tried to exclude her mother from the wedding entirely. I had only objected to her having a special role and her relationship partner being present while I footed the bill. I pointed out that she had deliberately concealed her plans until after getting my financial commitment, which demonstrated manipulation, not just being caught in the middle. A week passed with no response. Then, unexpectedly, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. It was Ivy, alone and in tears. This was our first face-to-face meeting since the initial intervention at my house. Once she calmed down, Ivy revealed several things that helped explain, though not excuse, her behavior. After my former wife and I divorced, my former wife apparently spent years subtly rewriting history for Ivy. She portrayed herself as the victim of a loveless marriage who had found true happiness with her relationship partner. She painted me as controlling and bitter. While Ivy claimed she never fully believed this narrative, it had influenced her perspective over time. More significantly, Ivy admitted that her mother had actively orchestrated much of the wedding drama. The idea for her mother to walk her down the aisle alongside me wasn't Ivy's. It was my former wife's suggestion, presented as a way to heal heal old wounds. The seating arrangements putting me at the same table as my former wife and her husband were also my former wife's idea. Ivy confessed that her mother had explicitly told her not to discuss these plans with me until I had already committed to paying, knowing I would likely object. The most shocking revelation came when Ivy showed me text messages from her mother. After I withdrew my financial support, my former wife had promised Ivy she would help pay for the wedding. But as the date approached and Ivy pressed her for the money, my former wife started making excuses and eventually admitted she couldn't afford to contribute much at all. This left Ivy in a position of either canceling her dream wedding or trying to manipulate me into paying despite my objections. She chose the latter with her mother's encouragement. I asked her why she hadn't come clean sooner, especially after seeing how her actions were affecting her relationship with Kobe. She said she had been too proud to admit she'd been wrong and had allowed herself to be manipulated by her mother. She also felt that backing down would be betraying her mother, who had framed the whole situation as a chance for Ivy to stand up for her. While I appreciated Ivy's newfound honesty, I made it clear that trust had been severely damaged. I told her rebuilding our relationship would take time and would require consistent respect and honesty moving forward. As for my former wife, Ivy revealed that their relationship has fractured significantly. After my former wife admitted she couldn't help financially with the wedding despite her promises, Ivy started questioning other aspects of her mother's character and behavior. She's begun to see patterns of manipulation that extended far beyond just the wedding situation. They're currently not speaking. My former wife continues to try to contact me through various means, but I maintain my policy of no communication. From what I hear through Ivy and others, she's now telling people that I've poisoned Ivy against her, completely rewriting the narrative yet again. I want to thank this community one final time for the support and perspective during this difficult situation. Edit. Some have asked if I'm planning to help Ivy financially in other ways after this. For now, I've made it clear that she needs to be fully independent. At 27, this is appropriate regardless of our recent drama. She seems to understand and respect this boundary. Regarding Kobe, a few people have asked if I'm still in contact with him. We've exchanged a couple of texts, mostly him updating me on his decision to end things with Ivy and me wishing him well. He seems like a good guy who dodged a bullet. Honestly, to those suggesting I should have exposed my former wife's actions to Ivy years ago, maybe you're right. I thought I was protecting her by keeping the ugliest details private until she was an adult. But that approach gave my former wife years to shape the narrative unchallenged. For those wondering about the wedding venue deposit and other expenses Ivy may have incurred, she lost about $5,000 in non-refundable deposits. Several people have asked if I think Ivy's apology was sincere or just a response to losing both her fiancé and her mother's support. Time will tell. I'm cautiously optimistic, but proceeding with appropriate boundaries.